Oh, that's because I have a specific gone live thing. Like if
Hmm.
you watch my live stream like on uh our Discord,
Oh,
yeah, that's how. Yeah, which should be interesting. And if we pull some up here, they could also see me going live in this case, since we're not like in a private thing. So
mhm.
that would be fascinating. So let's see. That means okay. So that now that this is live, there should be an actual website, like actual link to the live thing. Where is it? Where does it show up? Ah, it shows up here. Cool. I'm going to hear myself. Oh no, I'm not going to hear myself twice. This is great. Post
That's
that.
great.
It's great. It is so good. Yes.
So if I post stuff as thought raid, like questions and stuff, should I post them in YouTube or Facebook?
Yes.
Oh gosh,
That.
pressure much.
Yes. Listening definition. I need to pull that back up. I had it and then I got rid of it and it was sad. I don't need this up. That can go away. Cool. This is great. All right, I've got. See, unfortunately, like, okay, so you can see the screen, and you can see that there is a multi-stream section that will show me all the chat across both of the things, but there is nothing down here that allows me to actually like post anything. It's just empty. Where if I click on YouTube, now I have I apparently have to sign into chat, but I have a section down there that allows me to
Hmm.
respond. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So I can't do to both things. Maybe we need like an extra person to join us that could help us with the posting the questions or something. I don't know. Just like a thought
Mhm.
here in our little thought raid.
Poop and poop.
Poop and poop.
Oh, wrong person.
Uh oh. Oh no.
Get out of there.
Just delete. I didn't make that comment. Thought Raid made that comment. Wasn't me.
There we go.
Let me pull up question mark. I need to pull up. Hold on. Let's see. Where stop giving me notifications, phone. Give me my clock. Where's my clock? There's my clock. Okay, cool. I've got my clock. So yeah, cool. I have two clocks in my room. One's directly from my computer, and the other one is this small thing that I have sitting on my desk perpetually. And I have that second one there because when I'm playing games that are full screen, I can't see the time. So then I have
Mhm.
that there. Problem is, that one that I have sitting on my desk is a minute late. So it still says 6:59, but now my computer says 7. What do I do?
Why don't you just adjust it a minute ahead of time?
I could. I should. I will. But I'll have to do that probably after this point, not quite at this point. So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah. So, hello everybody, and welcome to Thought Raid, a show where we take on your thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. Gathered with me today is the wonderful. You can't see it correctly because for some reason I don't have it right. Oh no! It's been thrown off. Hold on, we have technical difficulties. Wait. Okay, let's go to this. That's still not it. Show me this. Oh no, we have technical.
Brandon, fix it.
I'm trying. I have it set up that it's supposed to pick up your face, but instead it has decided that it wants to pick up. Oh, there we go. That's much better. Okay, let's try that again. So, gathered with me today is the wonderful Tim. And now you can actually properly see his face. Before you'd have just seen Discord and then been, here's Tim, and it's just like some conversation on Discord. Like, what are you talking about, Brandon? Don't worry
Mhm.
about it. So, today is Friday, so we actually have a topic prepared for you today. And tomorrow we'll have like a whole like session where if you have like any sort of questions you want to join us in voice chat, then that'll be tomorrow. But today I have something planned. Before I get to that, Tim, how has your day been so far? I'm curious.
been pretty peachy. Just playing some League of Legends and streaming.
What what uh,
Talking with
what characters have you been playing recently?
see, I'm one of those people where I pick one thing and I just do it for a very long time. So it's been Pike, just like last time. I'll probably play him for about a year, then switch to a different character.
And remind me again, what kind of like character is Pike? Support or tank or what?
It's weird. He's like a support character, but he's a carry, like an assassin type. So
Okay.
it's so weird. It's like I don't have to do any of the work of farming and getting gold, but I get all the glory of getting kills, and that's part of the character's kit, which is really cool. I guess that's how I like to do stuff in life. I don't like to do the work, but I love the result.
I love the results. I
I think
think
everybody feels that way, though.
I'm fairly certain most people kind of are the same way though, so I think you're in good hands when it comes to that, or at least good company that is. But yeah, when I heard that first, it sounded like you said you don't have the responsibility of getting old, and I was like, wait, the League of Legends characters get old? Do they just become decrepit over time? I was very confused. Okay, but I've been good too. I've been today was exciting because typically I love it when you come up with topics because you seem to come up with them naturally. When I sit down to come up with topics, it's like I don't know I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Like I feel like I've talked about all there is and I don't know where to go from here, but like I had this one thing that kind of hit me yesterday before I even got to today where I usually sit down and think about it, and it was about listening. Um,
Mhm.
so beside all that, like I've been also just been really enjoying a new game called Satisfactory. I'm fairly certain I've sunk another 100 hours into Terraria from the last playthrough of all the days I've been playing it. And that's been fun. But now I've gotten a game called Satisfactory, which Axeman actually motivated me to get, and so I've been playing that yesterday. I'm gonna play it again today when we get done. So I'm excited about that.
What about Animal Crossing? If it's not a trash game, where is it on your roster of games to play?
Look, not much changes on the day-to-day basis of Animal Crossing, and presently I am not playing it. So don't judge me, okay? I've been getting closer to playing it again. I haven't gotten it to it yet. But anyways, so the topic. I wanted to name today's broadcast. What are you excuse me. Are you listening? What are you listening? Are you listening? Because I realized right now, with how everything is going, it is so important to be doing more listening than it is to be talking. Um, there's just a lot of hurt going on. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of confusion, especially. Um, and I think the most important thing that we could do more than even just taking action at this moment is to listen and to hear what people are saying so that way when we do take action that it's just much more richer and we have a lot more to bring to the table because we have heard all that's being said, analyzed it, listened to it, whatever, taken it to heart, and then proceeded from that. And so I figured what better way to start on are you listening to what is listening. And I feel like it's a good thing to kind of start with the basics of what is it that we're focusing on now, so that way when the rest of it gets unpacked, it's just a big wave. So what is listening? What is listening to you, Tim?
It's so weird because it seems fundamental. Like, okay, you just hear the other person or you hear what's going on, but I think it's a lot more than that. I think it's just conveying that you value somebody else's opinion or a party's opinion more than your own. So you shut your mouth and you're like, okay, well, what do you have to say? What kind of things are going on in you?
Yeah. And so yeah, that is definitely an important aspect of it. I think another aspect would probably be of just taking the time to sit there without any kind of responses in your head and just hear what's being said and allowing that to develop what is going to be said next. I wanted to take like
Oh, that's so hard though, man.
I
Like when people are talking, man, It is so hard. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's our human complex or something. But when people are talking, even if I am genuinely interested in what they're saying, I'm always thinking, okay, well, when do I get to speak? Well, I'm pretty smart too. I want to sound awesome. I want to I want to add something to this conversation. But I guess we all deal with that to an extent.
And I don't think like there's necessarily anything wrong with like having like, oh, I want to talk about this topic next and when can I talk about it? But I feel like to do proper listening, first you have to listen without an agenda or a thought in the back of your head that you're prepared to say as soon as the person stops, because you have no idea what they're going to unpack, and it'll be kind of foolish to just kind of bleh, here's this thing,
Yeah.
like, were you hearing anything that I just said? So
We have a mutual friend, and about 3 months ago, he came to me and he was like, "Man, I find it really hard to connect to people. What do you think I should do?" And I was like, "Man, you really want to know my my recommendation?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Shut up and listen more." And
ooh.
well, I mean, I say that for myself too because I need to listen more. I always like talking. Everybody likes talking, but I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Everybody thinks that what they have to say is the most important thing, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's understandable because you go. I don't think anyone is just trying to like pull things out of nowhere. Like unless you want to like create, I don't know, satire or some sort of like, false news thing just for fun, because I know that those things exist and I don't know what they're called. But I do know that they exist. Like the Babylonian Bee is an example of something that comes up with ridiculous news that it's not really based in reality, but it's just to see if someone like, oh, and they click on it and they realize it's not real at all. Like
Hmm.
unless you're like intentionally like trying to throw out random stuff. I think most people like they want to present, something that they've taken time to think about, that they're going to have something logical to bring. But even in the case you have the perfect right answer, before you present it, you have to start with listening, not really even like intending on bringing something. Like first you want to make sure that you understand. Anyways, we're gonna get there. The first thing that I wanted to go over was actually just simply the definition of listening before I went into I'm planning on getting to there. So so listening. There's a couple definitions, just easily pulling it up. One was to give one's attention to a sound. So this could be as broad as listening to the sound of a jet flying across the sky, or something as I'm listening to what you're saying, the sound of your voice. And another one was to take notice of and act on what someone says, respond to advice or request. So to take notice and to take notice of and act on what someone says. So it sets up right away. To listen, you have to take notice of what people are saying so you can then act on it. If you're not noticing what they're saying, then you're just acting on your internal thoughts rather than what's being said. So I
Yeah.
think, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, man, I'm feeling conviction already because all right, so when Ariane and I are talking and having some
Intense fellowship.
intense fellowship, I think Beth Johnson coined that phrase. She wants me to listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants to be heard. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll shut my mouth. I'll keep my opinions to myself, and I'll do this. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. I love you. I'm sorry. I love you. I'm sorry. But that definition, the second part of that's it threw me off because it's not just listening. It says and respond based on what you heard, and it's weird that that's part of listening because I can sit there and think, okay, well, I'm just not going to give my opinion. I'm going to address hers and try and validate her feelings and validate her, and think, oh, I'm a good listener. But oh man, that sucks. Because responding is so hard for me, man.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't think anybody is naturally just like I mean, there might be some people that are better at listening than other people, but I think vastly listening is a developed skill. It's something that is just, it takes time to build it up, Because, I mean, think about it, like, you have a little kid, you'll tell the kid the same thing 1,000 times, they'll probably still do the wrong thing over and over and over again. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody's just naturally good at listening. I think some people maybe are better at listening than others, but not like they've just arrived in here. I have come pre-packaged with listening skills. I don't know. So, but yeah, listening it requires two components. It requires hearing what someone's saying and responding to what they're saying. And that means that in the process of listening to someone, what you will say will probably change. And that's a good thing. That's something that if what you're hearing is not changing what you're saying, then that's probably a sign that you're not initially like really hearing what's being said. So I think that rides into the next question. How do you listen? How does one take the time to hear what's being said? What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
Hmm. See, I don't do this very well, or at least I don't think I do. Some people are like, "Oh, you're a good listener," and I just don't get it because the whole time I'm like, "Okay, what can I tell them that's going to show them the value in their process and who they are?" And I'm not. A lot of times I find myself thinking, "Oh, well, what I have to say is actually better than the questions that they're asking," and it almost invalidates what I'm trying to do with them. Um, so how do you listen?
Yeah, how do you listen?
Hmm. I guess you just stop for a second and kind of get outside yourself and try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think, okay, well, first of all, what are they trying to say? Let me let them get that out without interrupting them. And then after that, thinking, okay, well, I wonder why they feel that way, or I wonder why they've gone through this, instead of assuming, oh, well, here's how they feel, or here's why they said that, because that's super easy for people to do too. Like somebody will be talking and da 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 da, and then you make all these preconceived assumptions about what they're saying about them without diving into it. Because I think part of conversation is saying, okay, well, you said this, but let's dive into why you said that. Because oftentimes my assumptions about people, especially Ariane, are completely wrong.
Yeah. I think you're talking about assumptions and stuff like that. I think a key component when it comes to how well do you listen, I think involves what your preconceived ideas are going into the conversation. Because I think everyone's going to go into a conversation with preconceived ideas of how it's going to go, the intent and character of the person that they're talking to, the results they're already prepared. Like, I know for myself, before I even get into a conversation, especially if it's a conversation I'm not exactly excited about having, I've already had time to sit and think about what they're going to say, and I'm like preparing myself for the responses to that. Because what if they try to screw me? What if they try to manipulate me? Well, then I'm going to have this response prepared, or I'm going to react in this way or something. But I
Mm-hmm.
think a big part of how do you listen is how are you going into the conversation? Are you going into the conversation with, I want to learn as much as I can about this person so that way I can help them become the best that they can be? Or am I going into this conversation thinking I've got the answers for them, I've seen how they behave, they just, if they only knew this one thing, then it would change their lives. Like, like, I mean, that's a good thought, but
Mm-hmm.
you may that good. I have had situations where I presented a really good nugget of wisdom, and it was absolutely not helpful because I did not hear what they were saying, and I
Yeah.
assumed where they were at. Like, I remember, I had a frustrating time with a person, and I sent a text out to you and Eric and Dan about my frustrations that I was having, concerns and worries, and I had made this assumption that they were drinking one day, and so I was expecting them that they were probably going to be home with a hangover, and I was just like all these concerns and worries and stuff like that. I did no
Mm-hmm.
thought process of like what like I immediately assumed things. Like, I was assuming that I would have to confront them, and this was not going to go well, and what was going to all this kind of stuff. And when I actually did finally get to talk to the person, I found that one, they weren't having a hangover, they were fine the next day. Two, they weren't working, so they were off, and so I thought they were just off because of, again, the previous day before. And three, like, there was just so many things that were not quite what I was expecting, and things went a lot better than I was expecting when I had the conversation with them. So I really do think that a big part of, how do you listen is how are you going into the conversation ahead of schedule. What are your preconceived, because yeah, you can't avoid them. You're going to have them, but you can choose what you're going to perceive heading into it. I think that will make listening a lot easier. Does that ring any bells for you? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of the people, especially people that we talk to, a lot of the people that I have as clients also, they talk about relationship issues. And they talk about, oh, well, why don't they feel loved? Why don't they feel heard? Why don't I feel heard? Why don't I feel loved? Why is my relationship with party A, B, and C breaking down? Um, and I got a question. Why do you think we go into conversations prepared to win or dominate?
Uh, I think for me, the reasons why I would go into a conversation prepared to, like, as you say, win or dominate is I have again, it goes back to preconceived notions. I am perceiving that the person is probably going to fight me, that it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, that I have the answer, and I need to give myself mental fortitude so that I don't cave. And I'm just like, I'm ready to go. Like, we're gonna have this conversation, so I'm ready to win and dominate in this because I've already been through conversations similar to this. So clearly, this conversation is probably gonna go like this, and that's kind of where that comes from. I think does that what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
it makes sense. I'm just there's a lot of people that I know, and like I said, this is the pot calling the kettle black because I do this sometimes too. But it seems like with certain people, they just consistently go into conversations not listening. They consistently go into conversations trying to dominate, offering, just offering, and spewing, and it's almost like they never ask questions themselves. And I'm trying to figure out what the common denominator in all those people are or is, even when I do it, what's the common denominator?
I feel like it has to probably have something to do with some form of insecurity of, like, again, like, this is the way it happened before. It's probably going to happen again this way. I must prepare myself so that I don't fall into the same trap I did before. Because, like, I've had several conversations in the past where I've been manipulated, where I've been treaded on, where I've been belittled. And so I don't want that to happen again, obviously. It's not fun. So I create a certain amount of preemptive fortitude that when I go into the conversation, I'm prepared for specific responses. I'm waiting for them. The minute I hear the slightest bit that sounds like that response, here's my here's my prepared response to that. Oh, let me tell you. Or sometimes
I was ready.
or sometimes I have a low opinion of the person. Not intentionally, of course, but just because of how they've acted before. I've heard their same responses over and over again. There may be a bit of pride inside of me. So now I'm like, okay, we've been down this path before. Listen, here's this. Let me remind you of this. And then I just slap them over the head again and again. Because I've done a lot of accountability stuff. And in the beginning parts of my accountability days, I had all the answers. And so if you just do this, you would see better results. Until the day came where those same things that I said I should be doing was not working for me. And I'm like, wait. And then I had to be humbled and I started listening more. So, I think that's probably where that kind of comes from. It has to come from some form of either insecurity and fear or pride or both.
Yeah.
Do you kind of agree with that, or do you have, like, other kind of ideas of where that may come from?
Yeah, I mean, I completely support that because I know, especially coming up through my 20s when I wasn't really sure of my value and I didn't think that people would like me just for me, I would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk about the things I had learned and the things that I thought were true. And I was like, you know what? I'm really smart in this area, so I'm going to tell you all about it. Hopefully, you'll see how valuable I am. And it's interesting how the more I get closer to Jesus, and he showed over the past several years, especially, he's shown me that I don't have to prove myself to anybody.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere in the Bible it says, don't lift yourself up in front of other people. Let the Lord do that.
Oh yeah.
Don't sound your own trumpet.
Yeah.
And it's like whenever I see different movie archetypes or character archetypes, rather, um, more so than in the past now, I like the character archetypes that are kind of like the soft spoken rock type people where they don't have to say anything. You just know
Yeah.
that they're solid. You just know that they have value. You just know that they've got it figured out. And they
Yeah.
say maybe one or two words, but when they say it, people listen
Yeah.
because they're not trying to prove themselves.
Yeah. That's very popular in Japanese anime. There are several characters that are like that. They don't say much, but then when they do say something, it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's almost like in anime, especially the comedic effect characters are the ones that are always yapping.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you know? The next question I had was, how do you know when you're not listening? What does that look like for you when you know, like, okay, I've shut off, I've tilted, I'm not hearing what this person is saying anymore, and we're talking like examples of like you're bored, or examples of like you're anxious, or examples of how do you know when you've stopped listening?
That's a good question. I think it's multifaceted too. I think I suffer from feeling bored when I talk to people when I stop listening. And I think it's just because I got so much going on in my head and I start thinking about other things instead of being present. That's a big thing for me. I have difficulty being present because my mind is always like going off about things.
Yeah.
And so I'll have a deep heart to heart conversation with Arian or a close friend, and I'm thinking, man, did I edit that video? Yeah, or like, when do I need to change my oil?
Yeah.
But I also think that a red flag for me that'll show when I'm not listening or indicate that I'm not listening is when I'm in my emotions. Like I get angry, or how when somebody says something that really sets you off, and like your chest and your heart and your like armpits get hot. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, what is this? And then you start feeling defensive. When I feel defensive in a conversation,
Oh yeah.
I'm
That's
not listening.
that's where the listening turns off, because again, it's defense. It's just like, we have hit the topic. I knew this was going to be talked about. It's being talked about, and now here's my pre-response. Made up. Bum. Shut down. Shut down. Shut down. Shut down. And everyone encounters it like, you can see it different, like a gloss over. Over their eyes, just that they've checked out, or they start like tapping their foot rapidly, or they want to get away or go upstairs. They've stopped listening. Yeah, I think it looks differently for everyone. When I've stopped listening, I can relate to a lot of those things. When I feel defensive, at that point, I've learned how to listen when I feel defensive. It's not easy, because when I feel defensive, I'm also scared. And so I'm afraid that that I'm going to be manipulated. So I have to really work hard to listen to what they're saying in those moments. It takes a lot of strength to do that. And of course, bored. I think one of the things that was really important for me to discover, which we've talked about in previous episodes, or however you wanted to call these things, shows, previous live streams, was you're not going to be able to connect with everybody. And then there's just some types of people that it's just, for whatever reason, I don't connect well. So we could be talking and I just check out, and I hate it, and I can feel myself checking out, because all of a sudden I'm more conscious of what I want to do, getting away.
Mhm.
How can I politely end this conversation? But
Yeah.
I've definitely, I'm not listening anymore. You know, I've had that, or like it's really intense, like a political conversation sometimes. I'm not listening in those moments because I'm so used to people getting so angry with me when I provide my viewpoint that I just am. I'm more so concerned of like I'm like, please let's stop, and I put up walls, and I'm not
Mhm.
listening anymore. But that's it could look all different types of ways, like, you know, feeling scared, feeling
Mhm.
defensive, when you start thinking, your mind starts wandering and you're thinking more about different things, or like I've had this happen to me. You know, you're talking to someone and they're like, they start doing another action while you're talking to them, and like, oh
Oh
no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I'm listening. I'm like, I mean, maybe you are, and maybe you are better at listening and multitasking than I am, but I feel like most people can
it's just
only,
rude.
you can only get so much if you're doing two things at once. It's just not gonna work. I'll wait. I will wait, let you finish your task, and then when you finish, then I'll resume.
Well, do you feel that way when it's? Of course, you feel that way when it's something deep. But if it's something superficial, like who's your favorite Smash Brothers character? Actually, Jared would argue that's a deep question. Just something superficial, like, oh, what's your favorite kind of food or something? Do you feel equally as offended when somebody multitasks while you're talking about something like that?
Most of the time, no. I think the times where I will feel especially least bothered by that is if we're both like doing something together, like
Mhm.
playing games and talking about random stuff. Like I do that all the time. I don't care if you're playing another game and I'm talking, and you know, that in that case it's just we're both entertained, we're fine.
Mhm.
but if we're but if this was a situation where it's like I'm on a date and I'm talking to my date and my date is doing something else and we're talking about what's, you know, something basic, it would bother me more. It's very circumstantial.
Mhm.
So like what values me, what says value to me more would determine whether that bothers me or not. So
Mhm.
a date, that's heavier. Playing video games, eh, you know, and I have the ability to stop what I'm doing if it gets intense and listen, and I've done that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or I've played Minecraft and I've ran around in circles just so I can hear someone. I've done that too.
Yeah, now I've been on the opposite side of that, where somebody's talking to me, and for some reason I start feeling insecure, or I start feeling weird. This happens to me frequently because on a previous, I think one of our first streams, we talked about me trying to fit in.
Hmm.
You remember that one? It
Pretty
was you,
early
me, and
on.
and like if I'll start to feel insecure about something we're talking about, I have to have I fidget. I have to have something in my hands, or I'm like, oh well, let me go over here and do this, so I don't have to look at you, and I don't have to feel that awkwardness. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's a good sign. That's a good segue to talk about like grace, if you wanted to take that segue of like giving people grace. Part of listening means you're going to encounter people that are not going to have the same fortitude in the moment that you do as you're
Mhm.
talking to them, but giving them grace to let them do their fidgeting, to do their whatever, you know, and kind of testing the waters to see how well did they do two things at once while listening to you. Because again, there are some people that are better at it, but in general, you know, I think it's better to move away from literally doing two things at once while talking, especially the
Mhm.
deeper the conversation goes. Because I promise you, the minute someone becomes angry, they're very not likely to be doing two things at once at that time. So you know, when you have someone's attention, anger is the quickest way to get someone's attention, to give them something that
Mhm.
sets them on edge. They've stopped doing two things, they're focused on you now.
I, yeah, I'm kind of the opposite though. Like if I get angry in a conversation, I'll try to do something else, like fold some clothes or angrily do some dishes. Where it's like, you know what, you can't be mad at me. I'm doing dishes, or like just do something to diffuse my anger. Like,
Huh.
especially if in the conversation I can't walk away from it at that time. You know, because there are certain situations where you just can't walk away. Like the other person won't let you walk away, or it's not healthy to walk away, or you're just not in a position to walk away. You know, and so at least for me, and everybody might be different. This might be a super unhealthy tactic, but like if I find myself just getting more and more pissed, like the more I stare at you, the more I want to punch you in the throat. It's like, okay, well, let me just look over here while we're talking and just say, hey, you know what? I'm focused on this. Just I need to cool down for a second. Let's still talk. Let's just ease up.
That makes me think. This is a little bit of rabbit hole with that one. But when you're in pain, are you the type of person that wants to have distraction from the pain? Someone talk me through it, or the person is like, shut up, don't talk to me while I'm in pain.
What kind of pain are we talking about? Like stub my toe or you hurt my feelings?
Like, just take it to the base. Stub your toe pain.
Uh, hmm.
Or like, let's say you're someone's doing surgery on you and you're awake for it. Do you want them talking you through it, or you want them to shut up?
I really don't know. I do know that I don't like being patronized. I mean, who
Interesting.
likes being
Oh
patronized?
yes, yeah. Because like for
Yeah.
me, I was wondering. I was in my mind. I was trying to see if I could connect those two things together. Because like maybe the reason I was thinking to myself, maybe the reason why I like to like when I'm angry, I'm focusing on the situation, is because also when I'm in pain, I don't I don't want anything added to it. Just let me handle the pain, and when the pain subsides, I'm good. So when I'm angry, I'm focusing on it with all my focusing power. I can't multitask at that point. And
Hmm.
so I'm wondering if there's a correlation between those two things. Of like maybe if I'm if someone wants to talk me through something and I was that kind of person, then I could also multitask when I'm angry to try to get my mind off of the anger that I'm in. But I kind of
Yeah.
focus on the pain that I'm in and just kind of like, okay, like I process through it, until it's
Hmm.
gone.
Yeah. I'm one of those people where I have to think through things, and if you ask me questions while I'm thinking, I can't think. It's like just leave me alone for 10 minutes or maybe 3 days or something, so I can think through this, and then I can formulate my thought. Because maybe it comes from me having a position in life where, for the longest time, I people pleased and I never considered my own opinion. So if
Mm,
people would speak, I would just automatically receive and take on their opinion. But if somebody is talking to me about their opinion or what they think or how I should think before I figured it out, it's so much more difficult for me to think through it for myself.
I need some time to, and that in general, and that's a whole like segue into like counseling and stuff, like taking the time to just like process things and figure
Hmm.
out what you think rather than just immediately like yes, like you don't have to say yes immediately. Like boundary setting, that's what I'm looking for. Boundaries, not having to say yes the first thing that you hear, but saying I'll think about it and then come back to it later, and then you have your response and where you're standing on it.
Hmm.
But that, yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I was just trying to think of maybe those two things were connected between like, how do you handle pain to when you're angry? Are you focusing it on the whole thing entirely, or you're trying to distract yourself from it? But I don't know, maybe that's just a shot in the dark.
Well,
Um,
I know that whenever I'm in an argument with somebody, like the easiest way to piss me off in an argument is to hurt my pride,
hmm,
right? Because I don't like being proven wrong unless I say, "Oh, I'm wrong first." Like, don't you tell me that I'm wrong before I say that I'm wrong. That's not. Oh, it makes me so angry. But when I'm in that space, I just stop listening, and I have to take a step away and say, "Okay, you know what? I'm being prideful. I just need to submit my pride, and just put the person over my pride. And then, I'll slink back in the room. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm still pissed. I feel like I was wronged. I know I wasn't wronged. I feel like I was because I did something wrong or I did something bad or I put myself before you. I'm sorry. And it takes me some time to get there. But if somebody tells me that I'm doing that, it's so much harder.
yeah, but that I think that really goes well when it comes to listening, then though, because if you're able to continue to work on your listening skills, it becomes easier in the moment if someone were to be correcting you to be able to handle that correction without it immediately bringing up anger and pride and frustration. Because then as you're listening to them, you're hearing the tone of voice, you can think more clearly on like what kind of background does this person have? Do I have I had the time? Like, is this someone I already trust? Okay, I trust them, so I know they're not just trying to like throw me under the bus, kind of
Hmm.
thing. They're not just trying to like throw dirt on me. They're trying to build into me. I'm gonna listen, because that I don't know, that just segues really good into that. Um,
Hmm.
So it makes me kind of almost want to skip over my fourth question into my fifth question, because the fourth question was how do you handle distractions, but the next one is how do you know when to respond? And I feel like that's more applicable to this moment than the last one. So I guess we'll skip into that one then. How do you know when to respond? I think oftentimes that's a confusing part. Like, so now, you know, I'm working on listening better. I'm working on, hearing what someone's to say, but I still have things I want to say. When do I respond to that? When is it okay to respond? And that's a very dynamic thing. I think when it comes to knowing when to respond, it's important to have taken the time to listen to what people are saying, hearing them, you've heard, they've gotten out their full thought, and you're checking and making sure that the thought is not looping, I feel like. Because sometimes as I'm listening to someone, you got those long-witted talkers, and they'll just say the same thing, and they'll keep adding more words to the same measure over and over and over again. If they're not doing that, you can tell they're bringing out one full thought, and you're hearing what they're saying, and you're taking into consideration how does what they're saying relate to the point that I'm trying to bring. Does this change what I'm thinking at all? Does this change how I see the person all? Like if my thought is I'm going to confront you, Tim, and I think Tim, if you need to listen more, and so in a conversation you're talking to me about your listening skills, and I hear, okay, so I do this and this. I didn't really see that before, but because I was listening, now I realize you do those things. So now, okay, I can take what I have to say and okay, now I can speak with grace. Okay, so I was going to say you need to listen more, but after hearing we're talking about listening, and you've talked to me about your techniques of listening, how you're doing that kind of stuff. I'm okay, now I can talk about graciously, okay, so you're really good at this. I heard you say that you do this, and this. This is great. Have you thought about this? Because now what you've done is you've taken what they have said, thought about it. Now you're speaking it back out to them and adding your thoughts. So I think if you the right time to respond, when do you respond, comes after you've taken the time to analyze what they said. You're able to repeat what they said in your head. Now here is what you said, adding on to what my thought process is, at least from a counseling perspective. Obviously not every conversation is going to look like that, but I mean, if you're in a deep conversation and I'm opening my heart up to you, I think it's really good that after you've taken the time they've said their sentence, you've thought about what they had to say. Now you're speaking, this is what I've heard you said, here's my thought process with that. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I feel like I just got a shot all over the place with that. Help me out here.
Yeah, buckshot Brown.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm thinking about Jason Logue right now. And so Jason, if you're watching, I like you. You have people in your life that you conversate with and you talk to. I hate the word conversate. It just sounds so pretentious. You have people in your life you talk to, and there's different levels of conversation. You have those people that you ask them tons of questions and they never ask you questions. It's like they're a black hole. And then you have those people that will ask you questions equally. Like you ask them some questions, they ask you some questions. Then you have some people that only ask you questions. And to me, it's weird because it's almost like people that I'm always asking questions to are people that either are not capable or are not giving to me or care about me or are in a position where they need to be mentored by me or need something from me.
Fascinating.
And then people that ask me questions and I ask them questions equally, it's almost like we're on lateral ground. We're friends, same life season, same similar thought process. And then people that are constantly asking me questions, and it's like, wow, okay, so you want to know about me, and I'm giving them tons of responses. It's almost like they're in a mentor role.
Yeah.
Like Matt Peterson, I've never been in a place, and he's our pastor for those of you who don't know him. I don't think I've ever been in a place where I've asked him tons of questions. He's always asking me questions, David Olinger is kind of the same way. I feel weird asking him questions, as strange as that sounds. But you, Brandon, I feel equally as comfortable and good like when you're asking me questions as I'm asking you questions. But then there's people in my life where it's almost like we wouldn't have a relationship or conversations if I was not asking you questions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking about I'm reading a book right now called Clean Language. It's talking about the clean language model where you just refine what people say. And clean language questions are, for instance, somebody says, I feel frustrated. Instead of assuming what they mean or taking it off in a different direction, telling them stuff, you ask them, okay, well, what kind of frustrated is that frustrated? I feel frustrated because I feel like beating my head up against a wall. And then you just keep pursuing and trying to get down to the bedrock of refined thought with them, because a lot of times people don't really know how to process what they're thinking, especially if they don't have a good social circle where they feel filled conversationally, I guess. Does that make sense?
It does. I've never really I've never really looked at it, talking about it initially with, the people, when you're in a situation, you're asking all the questions. That's more of a mentorship. You have equal amounts of question asking, or at least some degree of equal amount of, obviously some days more than others, but equal amount of question asking is more of like a partnership or, equal footing. And someone always talking to you is kind of like, you're asking, them questions. It's just not, there's no, you're just constantly pouring into them rather than the way you're the mentor. I've never heard it put it like that, but that's true. And I think that also kind of goes into how do you know when to respond? Like what situation are you in? I feel like the response probably talking about all that should come after a lot of questions being asked. Because someone will present something to you like you're talking about, I'm frustrated. But there's so many layers to that frustration. Like for me, I hid the word angry under the word frustrated. And also upset. And I didn't realize that I had anger until I was able to pull back those layers and realized, oh, so that's what I'm really feeling. I'm actually feeling angry. Wow, I do have anger. What a surprise. And that kind of came out of question asking. Or at least in this... No, yeah, it came out of question asking. Because it was during a counseling class. Where the teacher was like, you have anger, what are some words, what are some words you might think are connected to anger? And I, started to say frustration or frustrated or angry and stuff. And I was like, well, there you go. So the question asking enriched the response. So I feel like knowing when to respond is, have you asked enough questions, I guess, in some ways. I feel like that's a layer to it, because if your response comes immediately after the first thing someone says, you might not have listened well. You were just waiting for that response. But if you have some questions to ask, like, okay, why are you frustrated? Why are you anxious? What is going on? Okay, here's my response. Tell me more about that. After that point, then you can begin to feel that readiness to respond, because now you're not just presenting your idea, you've had enough input that you can now present even better. Here you go. Here's a response based off of what I've heard you say.
Yeah.
And I feel like also to know when to respond is to know if you've been able to replicate what the person said. Because I feel like if you've listened well, you should, to some degree, be able to regurgitate what they said back to them. Because that shows that you've taken the time to hear what they're saying and you thought about it. And now you can bring it back out. Obviously, if your whole focus is just to regurgitate and there's nothing more to that, well, then you're a machine just spitting back out information like a microphone.
When Ariane and I get into arguments and I'm doing that thing where I shut down because she's hurt, or I've allowed my pride to be hurt. Almost said she hurt my pride. She can't hurt my pride. I allow that. When I've allowed her to hurt my pride or just whatever and I'm shutting down, she'll ask me, okay, hey, you say that you understand me. Tell me what I've said. And it's like, what? And she's like, tell me what I've said. And I can't tell her what she said because I'm being all wrapped up in my emotions, not listening. And it's like, okay, I wasn't listening. But that hurts my pride even more. So I put it down again. But yeah, that really resonates.
Yeah. Because I feel like it becomes, it becomes easier the more secure you become in your identity, in who God made you to be, receiving his peace, the easier it is to hear what other people have to say. Because I remember there was, I don't remember where this is in the Bible, but I do know it's there. There was they were talking about a situation where someone is, if you have offended someone, you you and they're taking you to court. You don't want to, you don't have to necessarily figure out what you have to say. You can trust in the Holy Spirit to give you the words to say when you're there. Like, don't worry yourself over how am I going to defend myself, because if you're living your life honestly and truly and purely before God, he's going to give you the things to say. You don't have to put so much time in it, because that comes out of trust. You know that you're valuable, you have worth just inherently. And so you don't have to say anything, because you already know that you're approved by God, and he's going to give you things to say. So you can safely listen to what people are saying, not having a prepared defense, and it's going to be okay. If they respond wrongly, that has nothing to do with you, your value, who you are, anything to do with that nature. That just means that they're going through a rough time, and you have the honor to be there to work it through with them. So I feel like that's really important, like in those moments of just like reminding yourself, it's like, okay, I am afraid of what could happen, but I know God's got my back. I know that he is in my corner, that he is going to lift me up, build me up. I know he cares about me just for who he made me to be. And it's not anything to do with what I've done, what I have, where I've been, what I know. It just squarely has to do with who he made me to be, which is unchangeable.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to somebody who doesn't believe in God and Jesus about all that? So same position, but without God and Jesus.
I think if the closest thing you could do without having Christ there with you, without believing in him, it still very much so helps to have people there that are in your corner, that believe in you, that support you, that you can trust and talk about what you're going through, because that gives you a foundation, that gives you the strength to listen. Because as long as you have people, because you think about people, elderly people, that they'll talk your ear off, and they come to your job, they just start telling you their life story. They don't probably have anybody in. It's tragic, because they probably don't have anyone in their lives at the moment that are listening to them regularly, that are hearing what they have to say, hearing their stories, that are just there for them. I think a lot of people, they talk a lot because they don't feel like they're heard. Going back to the quote from Martin Luther King Jr., writing is the language of the unheard. I think I hope I'm quoting this correctly. It's the language of the unheard. When people don't feel like they're heard, when they don't feel like they're valued, they're going to keep talking. They're going to keep defending themselves. They're going to keep, trying to have everything together, because that's where their value comes from. They have to protect their value. They have to protect what little they have. So if you don't have Christ, and even if you do, I feel like it's really important to have friends, people that hear you, people that are going to listen to what you have to say, that believe in the best in you and pull that out of you. Because then when you encounter other people, it's a lot easier to have that, okay, if this doesn't go well, I still have people back at home that love me, that listen to me, that hear what I have to say. If you don't have that, like, drugs can't provide that, alcohol can't provide that, sex and pornography can't provide that. All those things are just outside of people. People are, no matter if you're a really strong independent person or an extrovert that needs a lot of friends, people need people. And at least for me, that's what I need. Like, I know a lot of the strength that I have has come out of conversations with you, Tim, or Dan, or Eric, or other people in my close circle. I know that I still have you that believes in me. So I at least know that I could be validated by you or someone else, and that allows me to be more open to hear what people have to say, to listen better. Does that strike a chord?
Yeah, it really does. You know, I remember I used to talk a lot more before I was married, and I used to talk a lot more. I know that's tough to believe because I talk all the time, but I used to talk a lot more from a position of, hey, I just want to be heard before I was married and before I had my close core of friends. It's like if you go to my Facebook and just go back 5 or 6 years, I was constantly posting things that was just fishing for people to like me, fishing for people to notice me, fishing for people to think good things about me. And if you go to my Facebook from the past year, it's mostly just memes and sharing thought raid stuff. I don't care as much about being heard because I feel heard or I feel valuable. I feel like I don't have to seek value in conversations. I don't, and that's why we do this.
Yeah.
I don't care if anybody's watching because I know it's going to give value to somebody someday. So I'm not getting value by us having X amount of viewers. I mean, it feels good when people are talking to us and whatnot, but that's what makes it so much easier to maintain my purpose, even though on the surface it doesn't seem like I'm being valued.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Wait. Speaking of listening, there was a post that popped up in the corner of my screen that made the last bit of what you say just go whoop out of my mind. I was on board. Could you repeat that last part one more time?
I don't recall what I said.
Crap!
Luckily, luckily it's recorded.
Good. I was listening up this whole point, and then a little thing popped up in the corner of my screen from a notification for someone that posted somewhere on Discord, and boom, everything just left in that moment.
Maybe we should go to question 4, how to avoid distractions.
How do you avoid distractions? So, okay, great. Perfect timing. I guess in this case, make sure you don't have little notifications showing up in the corner of your screen that says so-and-so said something, because that will definitely distract me. But I guess in that case, it also depends on how deep is the conversation. Because, a conversation that's just we're, playing a game together and we're not really talking about anything important, who cares about distractions as much? Then if I'm talking to you about a bad day that I've had, that's a place where I need to put down what I'm doing, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, and focus on what the person is saying. So, like, things like, typical, we hear this all the time, people are rating about phones, put the phone down, put the phone in your pocket, put the phone on the table somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a really quick and easy way to distract people. You can get used to the presence of your phone, but that takes some time of developing. If you're so used to the minute the phone makes a sound or buzzes to go straight to it, for a time, it would be good to have the phone somewhere else where you can't feel it, can't hear it. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're going into a deep conversation, you can put the phone on mute and turn it off of vibrate, and then you'll never know. And it'll be okay. I think one of the most important things, perhaps more than what you can do, is what mindset you can take on. Because if you can realize that the world, this is something I've had to discover, I'm speaking to myself as an only child. If you can realize that the world does not revolve around you and it does not rest on your shoulders, and if you don't respond to something right away, that it does not mean the end of the world, that is an easy way to cut distractions out of your life. Because I think the hardest thing, if you're trying to get yourself away from distractions, is that fear. The fear of what if I miss out? The fear of missing out, FOMO. That fear of if I'm not there in that moment, I'm not going to be accepted. I'm not going to get the second chance again. Life is too fast. I can't keep up with it barely. I can't put down the distractions because if I do, I'm going to miss out. You're not. Life is not that fast. In fact, the older I've gotten, the more I realize life is typically very slow. And there are lots of just slow moments in between thank you for liking the stream, Mac. A lot of time between one major event to another major event. There are times, like during this pandemic, where everything is happening fast, but in general, life is not that fast, and it's a deception to think I have to be going fast to keep up with everything going on. No! You don't. Even when I was coming to the end of my time with the walking company, that was a long process. I stuck with the walking company for 4 years before it finally they closed the store, and I could have left a lot sooner than that. So there's just a lot of things in general you're not going to miss out. If you are trying to be present in conversation and you're also trying to respond to other people, understand that the right people are going to be okay if you put them on the back burner for a while. They're okay with not being responded to immediately. I really feel like it's important to point out that at least when it comes to distractions to listening, having social distractions, that's probably a big one. Can you think of other distractions that might get in the way too? Because that's one that's majorly coming to mind.
I think a big one is expectations. Like I know that whenever I'm with Ariane or out to dinner or something, and somebody texts me, I immediately pick up my phone and I think, oh, I have to respond. Or if work would call back when I worked at GameStop, and being a store leader, I was responsible for that store 24 hours a day, even if I wasn't there. Um, and I think it just comes down to boundaries and expectations. Like a lot of times people will not give full attention to somebody because they think, oh, well, everything else, there's an expectation that all these outside influences need me right now more so than this thing that I'm focused on.
Mm.
You know,
Oh yeah, expectations that made me think of like family or societal expectations put on us. Like for instance, you are having a conversation with someone and they start cleaning dishes, or they start vacuuming, or they're doing something else, so they're responding to something. Like the expectations that may be on them, that they have to do these things. Like if these things don't get done, like we can't, like this conversation is going to derail from that. And realizing that no, like maybe in the past that might have been an expectation put on me, but like shedding off those expectations while in conversation. Continue, sorry.
yeah, you better be. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Also, I think a big one is fear and worry. And that kind of goes in line with expectations because when somebody has a dominating fear or worry, and you're having a conversation with them and you're trying to feel heard by them, or you're even trying to draw them out, and whatever they're worried about, it keeps derailing their thought process. And it's like, oh, I can't talk to you right now because I'm worried about this thing. And then you kind of get back on track. Oh, I'm worried about this thing again, or I'm afraid of this, or, oh, what are these people thinking? Or um, basically the frame of thought, like fear can dominate your ability to be present. And really what that's doing is you're saying, oh, well, I believe that this thing that I'm fearing is more important and has more value and immediacy than this person in front of me, which might be true sometimes. Because if you and I are hanging out and Ariane messages me, hey, I got into a car wreck. Bye, Brandon. I got stuff I got to do.
Yeah.
But, sometimes there are things that are outside of your control. And yet you think, okay, I'm going to spend so much time and headspace thinking about this that it's going to completely rob me of what I can receive by being present right now. And that's a big one for me too. I can think about how do I articulate this? Not getting things done, or not meeting a level of productivity that I think I require to be valuable. So like on Wednesday this week, I did, like you always tell me, Jim, take some rest. Tim, take a day off. Tim, take a day off.
You took some rest.
I took a day off Wednesday and I did a few productive things, but I'd be lying if I didn't think to myself the whole day, man, I should be doing this. I should be editing videos. I should be coming up with content. I should be writing on my blog. I should reach out to this person. I have 23 unread text messages. I should read those.
Gosh.
And if you're one of those people, I really apologize. But like stuff like that, it's almost like that stuff has unnecessary, unequal value. How am I supposed to say this? It's a lack of value balance. It's like these things in my mind I think have more value than they actually do. And they cause me to tip the scales of my presentness in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, and maybe that's why a lot of times sometimes I do so good with listening in general, and I think maybe it comes out of the fact that in my scale of obligations of what's most important, the people are the highest and most important thing underneath God in my world. So when someone is there in front of me and they're talking, you literally are the most important thing to me in that moment.
And so, ladies, what Brandon's saying is he's a catch.
Sure. But literally that is the case. We talked about, like, you know how how do you listen, well, like what are your expectations going into it. In my world, the person in front of me that I'm talking to becomes the most important. There are downsides to that where I have to work on pulling myself away because I have needs myself. But in that moment, they're really important because I came to the realization that when I die, like, my this computer is not coming with me, this green screen is not coming with me, my apartment is not coming with me, my money is not coming with me, but people can and eventually will. We all die eventually. Welcome to Thought Raid. And but being one who believes in life after death, the most important to me is that you are there with me. So I'm going to intentionally put as much thinking power as I can while you're with me to think about how can I benefit you, how can I lift you up. And I want to take the time to hear what you're thinking and kind of, present other thoughts, because that's my priority list. The person in front of me is the most important. All of this will get taken care of one way or another. I will have money. God will take care of me. Somehow or another, I'm going to be okay. But, sometimes I don't know, like, are my friends, are my family, are they going to be okay? So I want to be there for them and help them through that and stuff. And again, there are downsides with that. Like, I do have to, pull myself back because I go too far. And trust issues, that's just a whole nother session of Thought Raid. But
I'll make a note.
yes, but the upside is that it allows me to be very present in the moment, in the conversation, to listen and hear what's being said. So, like,
I had somebody. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what are your priorities in the moment of, like, recognizing that the stuff can wait, but the person and the moment with the person is another story.
Well, this actually goes in line with that. I had somebody recently. I think it was on one of my private stream, or maybe it was a conversation I had with somebody. But they were like, "How do you have such a propensity for talking with people? Like, why is that your purpose?" Because a lot of people, they'll go to their job and they'll perform ABC task and whatnot. But like you and me, Brandon, we're doing this whole thought rate thing because we care about people. We care about
Right.
people progressing and understanding their value. I mean, break the meta. The whole, like, underscore thing is life purpose and value. Helping people figure that out. And I think it's lost my train of thought. What was the question again, real quick?
We were talking about specifically, just what is your focus when you're talking to someone, like, how do you know you're listening? How do you listen? We kind of jump back onto that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So back in my Amway days, I remember when I would engage people in conversation, I would think to myself, okay, are they a young 20s couple that is looking for a better life, and do they want to do business with me? And if I check those boxes off, and in the conversation I identified no, they weren't interested, I just checked out. I no longer had anything to get from that conversation, and I had a lot of very superficial relationships that died after the initial contact. But now, going back on what I said about the guy saying, how do you have such a propensity for what you do?
Yeah.
Well, now it's I'm not trying to get something out of people. I'm trying to give something to people.
Yeah.
That's why it's so it makes us feel so good to do these live streams, even if nobody's watching, or to talk to people, because we know what people's value are. Like you watching, right? We know what your value is. We know what you're capable of. We know what you're going through. We have empathy for what you're going through. We feel it. You're important. You have value.
Yeah.
You matter. And it's that in a nutshell, which is that's the secret to listening.
Yeah.
Like the other day, I was talking to somebody who was talking to me about their relationship and how it ended and what they're going through and how they're processing it and dealing with it. And I wasn't concerned about um, my League of Legends ranked stats. I wasn't concerned about what I was going to have for dinner. Then, if anything, I almost didn't eat that night because I spent so long talking to this person because I was so interested in what they were saying and like feeling for them and asking them the questions, draw them out because they hadn't had that.
Yeah.
Like they moved away to a different place and they just didn't have an outlet. Man, so few people have outlets, and that's why it's so important to listen.
Yeah.
And that's why some people, as we were talking about earlier, just seem like they're overflowing with endless blah 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 because they don't feel they're not heard, man.
Right.
And even if people listen to them, they're not actually being heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, sometimes there could be layers of just like, you know, they've not been heard for so long that they also don't know how to go a little bit deeper sometimes too. And you can have that situation as well where they're just endless topics of surface level things, which kind of generates the people not being there listening in the first place. Because I think in general, most people need to have those deep moments and can recognize the progression of a relationship with the progression of how deep you go with the person. but yeah, not heard, not heard. It's important. If you don't have Christ, and even if you do have Christ, it is so important to find people that can join you and hear your story, hear what you're going through, hear your thoughts, because in doing so, that will help when it comes to listening. Once you know you've been heard, then it becomes a lot easier to listen. I think a lot of times people want to punish someone into good living, but I think in reality, it's important to show them good living and to demonstrate that and to lay that out for people by being the one to listen in the first place, because I feel like a lot of people, once they know that they can be validated for what they're going through and what they're feeling, then they're able to open up more and listen more, because now I know someone believes in me and I can lay my walls down, lay my weapons down, be vulnerable.
Yeah, man, I remember so many Thursday nights at potluck in Zach's apartment just talking about what I was going through and just laying my life out in front of that close group of people. And I'm pretty sure that's what helped me get to the point where I'm at right now, where I don't feel like I have to be heard by everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not putting my life on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's weird because I do, especially in these streams, but I don't do it in a way to be heard. I do it in a way to
help
use it
others.
as a testimony.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I feel you. And I wanted to say also, we talked about this last stream, but I didn't quite get the chance to respond to it. We're talking about alternative timelines, that if, you had just been offended when the person closed the door on you the first time and didn't knock again, what could have happened out of that? I mean, keep in mind, if you didn't get involved with the potlucks on Thursdays, that I would be so much poorer for friends in that alternative timeline, because like when you had gotten involved with the potlucks right as my time at Impact was coming to a close, so my friends that I had there were kind of wandering away, with the exception of a couple, and so it came in at just the right time, just boom, fresh friends and a fresh group to be a part of that has molded me intensely into who I am at this moment, helped me grow in confidence, helped me grow in how much value I perceive that I have and everything, all thanks to you knocking twice on that door.
So essentially what you're saying is you owe me.
Maybe I do.
Patreon.com/Break the Meta LLC, please.
Oh my gosh. So I think we've covered a lot of the different questions that I've already have. Like, how do you know when to respond? What do you do if the other person isn't listening? I think we kind of in a way kind of touched on that one, like giving them grace. Like if someone's not listening, give them grace. If they're perpetually not listening, that's another story. Then we probably need to use wisdom and realize you're casting pearls before swine, so to speak. But giving them grace is important, because people have different levels of listening skills.
Yeah, something you just said kind of struck a chord. I, you get in these conversations sometimes where you're listening to somebody and you're asking them questions, and the second you try to talk, they go back into talking about themselves, or they go back into talking about their situations.
Yes.
If you have if it's frequent that you're having those conversations with somebody that you consider a close friend, I would find some new friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't really value. Oh, well, I don't say that. They probably don't understand that they're not valuing you properly, and everybody needs somebody, or a handful of people, really, at least two or three, that go back and forth with you and value you in conversation and listen to you as much in conversation as you do them.
To be fair, also, there could be a myriad of reasons why they're not listening too. It could be that their social circle is full, which I'm starting to learn. Like sometimes people get to a place where they have so many people in their lives that just don't have space to fit in new people. So they will
Mhm.
try to, out of the goodness of their heart, give someone time, but the whole time they're not present in that moment. Or they don't have good self-esteem, so they don't value themselves, therefore they're not going to value you either. Um, because ironically, thinking low about yourself is not going to help you think better about others or make you
Mhm.
improve in any shape, way, or form. You have to shift from self-hatred, not necessarily to, I'm the best thing in the world, but, I accept my good and my bad. And will constantly work on the bad until it becomes good, kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's different reasons why people don't listen. So you gotta use wisdom. Um,
Yeah.
because sometimes they're just inept. They haven't had that opportunity of people listening to them, so they're not good at listening either. But sometimes, they just, if you repeatedly keep talking to them and they keep changing subjects, or you can see their glazed over look on them, you have to constantly reach out to them. They never reach out to you. All these are good signs that it
Mhm.
might be time to move on, because
Yeah.
you're worth more than that.
Yeah.
You
And oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the first part you said, where their social circles can be full, and they do have good in their hearts, and they're trying to show you love, and they're trying to be patient for you, but you just don't get the hint. If you have that in your life, don't take offense to it, because it's super easy to take offense to that, thinking, oh well, they don't care about me, or well, they're this way or they're that way. There's a person in particular in my life where I have believed that about them, just because their social circle is full, and they didn't really do anything wrong. I should have more grace for them. I should be more understanding. I should have gotten the hint that my value in their life was not the way I saw it to them. To them, they were like, okay, my social circle is full and this is a good guy. I want to pay attention to him and I want to show him value, but I just don't have the capacity. And I allowed that to hurt my feelings. And
Yeah.
just don't take offense to that if that happens.
And it may not even be, I'm just picking up on that, it may not even be that they don't, like, take a hint or something of that nature. It just may be that it's just, they might not even recognize that their social circle is full. Like, that's a
Mhm.
whole thing. And you may just not have the correct personality gel. Like, one of the things I've learned as I've become more secure is that you, as a person, are going to do great with some people and you're going to do poor with other people, and it has nothing to do
Yes.
with your morality or your how good of a person you are. It just not going to gel. Like, I have a hard time gelling with people that are really into sports, or people that are, I can somewhat do better with people that are mechanics. Like, I can do a little bit better with that, but when you get into the more mathematical realm and logical realm of thinking, I struggle a little bit unless you have the ability to have more of an emotional capacity. And that I have a little bit of a harder time with that, because it's just, that's not naturally how I think. And that doesn't mean that you are any less of a person if you don't think similarly to that I do, or that you have whatever. It's just, I don't know how. I can't make my, I can only relate to so many people.
Hmm.
And so I think it's important to move towards just insecurity and understanding that you are still valuable even though this person doesn't get it.
Hmm.
And to realize that if you're so focused on trying to get them as a friend, realize that there might be some insecurities there to work on yourself, to realize I'm valuable, they're valuable, it's just not working out. Let me just find someone else that gets me
Yeah.
better. And the good thing is, if you're like me and you want to help everybody, you get better at that the more people that you can relate to having them in your life, because then you have that constant, again, to grow in listening, that constant foundation of people that love and accept you where you're at. It just expands how well you're able to reach out to people. You can reach out to more people better that way than you can, if you're putting all your time to people that you don't connect well with. I know it seems backwards. You just really want to reach out to that poor person in the back of the room that has a hard time reaching out to everyone. You want to save them from loneliness. But if you don't have a lot of close people pouring into you, you're going to reach out to them, and it's not going to be healthy because you're just trying to save them, and you're not their savior, and you're not going to have anything to give. I've learned that the hard way, and it sucks. I'm not omnipresent, and neither is anyone but God. So, anyways,
Yeah.
tangent.
I think also with that, you can show somebody love without putting a lot of investment into it, because something as simple as inviting them to do something without putting the expectation on yourself to make them feel a certain way. Yeah, that's super easy, because I've seen Zach do that so many times. He'll just go up and hug somebody, and that's all he does. He just is like, "Hey, come on, let's go," and he doesn't care. Do you have all your stuff? Do you feel comfortable? No, that's up to them to figure out. All he does, all you have to do is open doors. That's all you have to do. You're not responsible for the way they feel. You're not responsible for fixing them, and you're definitely not responsible for being everything to everybody.
Yeah.
You're just, honestly, following Jesus, our goal is to just show people there's an open door. You are valuable. You are welcome. You are important. You are seen. You are heard.
All I have to do is I've latched on to the phrase. All you have to do is open the door for them. Like, have or to the degree, somebody to the degree of like open the door, like, give an open door to them, and then it's just up to them to decide what to do with it. Because that's interesting. It takes pressure off of my shoulders, which I'm very hard on myself sometimes. So to be able to take pressure off of me, here's the open door. You can do what you want. You can come in. We can see how things happen. I'm giving you open door. Nothing has to happen out of it. Take the stress and pressure off of that.
Dude, that's exactly what Christianity is supposed to be. All we're supposed to do is open doors. We're not supposed to make sure that people have a relationship with Jesus. We're not supposed to make sure they're living good lives. All we're supposed to do is open the door and let Jesus do his thing and set an example.
Yeah. And to be there to be love, because God is love. And love is patient. Love endures all kinds of things. It keeps no record of wrong. It believes the best in people. Anyways.
Yeah.
So let's see here. I think it'd be good just to go to the final question and then close it. What do you do when you can't listen anymore? Was the question I had. So what do you do personally when you can't listen anymore? I'm just gonna learn from you, Tim. What do you do? You've hit your max. What do you do? Perfect.
I mean, essentially, that's what you do. Like when you have poured all you can from your cup is empty, and you just have to be real. Because if somebody was sitting down with me, actually, one of my clients the other day, I told them, man, I just feel like I'm emotionally drained. Hence why we had that stream the other day saying feeling drained. That was me. And I just said, hey, I'm just feeling emotionally drained. I don't have the capacity for this tonight. And they were like, oh, it makes total sense. It's okay. Or sometimes with Ariane, I'm like, I need some time by myself. I can't be fully present with you because I've got so much on my mind, or I just feel empty, or I feel like I need to just spend time with myself or with Jesus. I think honesty is a big thing because if somebody was listening to me and asking me questions and they were just doing it to do it and their heart wasn't in it, I don't feel listened to anyways. I just feel like it feels like a charity conversation. Oh,
Yeah.
well, Tim needs me right now. Tim needs me to ask him these. No, I don't need you to ask me questions. I want you to care about what's going on in my life. I want you to care about what I'm saying, or I want you to care enough to tell me about your life. If you're just doing it to say, check it off on your checkbox,
Yeah.
like people answering my messages. If you really don't want to respond to one of my text messages or Facebook message, and you just reply with "Fine, thanks. How are you?" Don't even do it, man. You're not even giving me the satisfaction of being present.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of just being honest in the moment of like, okay. And like, I feel like you could probably be creative with it too. Be like, hey, um, I'm tired, I need to head home or something, or I got other stuff I need to work on. Because in
Mhm.
general, I've said that sometimes, and it is honest. Like, I do have other things I could be working on in that moment. But just after that point, like, after working on listening and building your listening skill, you're still going to have limits to how much you can listen. And I think it's good to kind of keep tabs on when the non-listening train takes over and it can't be stopped, because there comes a point, some point in the conversation, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's lengthy, but they will come. And I feel like in those moments you have options. In those moments it is okay to separate yourself from the conversation. Look, like, I'm tired, I can't focus anymore, I've really been enjoying this, but I can't focus anymore, I need to get going. Or, hey, I've got other stuff I need to do, I need to get going now. Or like, also, like, I think it's good to sometimes to have like time frames. Like, okay, I have to go in the next 5 minutes, because then again, that also, I feel like having like a time frame to it really helps. Also with just like it helps put the expectation out there. Like, they now know this is where the boundary is. I can only go this far, and it will be more easier to pull yourself away than rather having like a nebulous of like, I don't know, like,
Yeah, it's like you have those sometimes when you're hanging out with people and you get to that point where everybody's checking out, and then you just it's almost like everybody goes down into the depths of who they are to muster up something to say to keep it going, and you can tell that it just carries no weight.
yeah. Yeah, so I feel like having like a timeline, like when you begin to feel it, like as you start to recognize, uh-oh, I'm checking out and I can't fight this. That's the point where you can say, hey, I got to get going the next 5 minutes, or I need to get back home now. It's time for me to go. Those are the points where you can just honestly say, all right, I've hit max. Like, if you're like in a really close relationship and you've worked through a lot of stuff in life and they're going to be there no matter what, and like, hey, I'm done. Maybe you might be able to be a little bit more blunt and upfront and honest and open, because they're gonna love you regardless. You're like, I'm done now. I really want to do something else. Or like, like in those cases, like, you're living with them. Like, hey, I want to just go to my room now and play some games. Is that okay with you? Can I do that? Okay, I've got to do this. Like, I feel like in those cases, it's okay for there to be an ending to the conversation, to the listening process. I think it's good to develop comfortableness with saying, this is how far I can go.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Do you have any ways of refining that?
Yeah, well, I think that's perfect. And I think it's also a good indicator of whether or not you have healthy relationships and boundaries in your life.
That's
For
true.
instance, I know, Brandon, if I was at your place and we were hanging out, we were talking, I just hit that wall and I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I could easily say, hey, Brandon, I think I'm going to go. I don't feel like talking anymore. You could get your feelings hurt by that, but I think we're at a point where you understand, hey, he's just being honest. You know
Yeah.
what? He still loves me. We still appreciate each other. There's nothing wrong. It's just, okay, he's at capacity.
Yeah. We're good. And that's why I've also been like been wanting to work on like have and this is a whole nother topic, but it made me think about this of just like having like just spending time. You're doing something, I'm doing something, we don't have to be doing the same thing, but we're enjoying ourselves, but we're there and we're present in the moment. Like,
Mhm.
if conversation were to come up, great. If not, no pressure. I think that's where you kind of learn how deep a relationship can go, where there's less and less pressure of how you're supposed to perform or be in the moment. and learning how
Yeah.
to do that. And that's where the conversations can become lengthier or longer because the pressure is not there. It's like when it ends, it ends.
Well, I think it's also easier when you have solidified friends or when you have long-term friendships or when you have it established, because when you don't have it, there's that there's that space for, do they want to be my friend? I'm not really sure. I don't have any friends. And so it's almost like you feel like you have to force it, and
Yeah.
you feel like you have to give a little bit more or else you're not going to be accepted. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that was not true during the early parts of our relationship. I mean, everybody's got that. So if you feel that and you don't have a lot of friends, you know, give it some time and just relax, man, because you can't be everything to everybody. They're not going to be everything to you. You're not going to be everything to them. You want a relationship where you're okay regardless of what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That you know that they're going to be there and you're going to be there, regardless of what happens. That it's just like what family is supposed to be. I know there are a lot of people, we have family, but the family acts like acquaintances. And sometimes friendships go deeper than family relationships do. But I feel like what a family should be is that safe place where you can be heard and you can, that people can hear what you have to say. And there's that mutual place of just respect and honor for each other and what's being said, so that you can then go from that place of family, expand outwards in other places and to listen to what they're saying and bring in more. Just enrich your life through relationships. So listening, all that happens through listening. Right now in this place where we're at, I think more than ever it is important to listen, to go into conversations expecting the best, having hope for where it could be, having higher when we have negative opinions towards someone, putting those opinions to the side for the conversation and just taking where could this conversation go and actively listening so that you'll be able to respond, being able to speak back out what the person is saying so they know that you're hearing them and that you also know that you've heard them. To bring clarification, to have those moments where, hey Tim, a thing popped up in the corner, I missed part of what you're saying, could you repeat that, and having the comfortableness to say that.
What the heck, you weren't listening to me, Brandon. Our friendship is over.
No. But now more than ever, it's important that we listen, because I feel like as we listen, rather than having that immediate response, having to defend ourselves, having to protect and be, having to defend our pride or whatever, to be able to put those things down, all of that gives space for growth, gives space for true healing, and it allows us to listen more and more better, so that we can build each other up and move in a more positive direction. So yeah, that's the topic. So I want to thank you guys for listening to us today. We will be broadcasting again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we would love to talk about any kind of questions that you have, so that if there's anything that we were not able to cover in today's what we were talking about, or any questions you have maybe not related to this, maybe you got something going on in your life and you want one of us to talk to you about it, we're here for that. And tomorrow is especially the time where we like to open the doors to talk about whatever is on your mind, whatever issues going on in the world, whatever it is, bring it. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you've not done so already, make sure to follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, because we like to take the edit of the videos we have, edit them, and bring them to you in nice quality. And finally, and I'm excited to announce this, and I have a post that's going up in the next minute, or actually it probably already got posted, we have Patreon! So if all the streams have really blessed you, you can now donate to us on a monthly basis so we can continue to bring you great videos and work on them, get them better and better. So the link to that at the moment is on Facebook. I think it's something like Patreon/ThoughtRaid. I'll be able to have the link to that. I'll put it into the comments below as soon as we finish. But if this has really blessed you, please consider donating to us, because we'd love to continue to make this be our full focus. But otherwise, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a good night.